Hey, how's it going? Quis here from Sports Vibes TV. I hope you enjoyed your holiday season. I know I did, got to spend some time with family, and I hope you guys were able to do the same as well. Uh, for this holiday season, I got a gift that I didn't expect I was going to receive, and that was the fact that the Knicks were going to beat the brakes off the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, in preseason, we beat the Cavaliers by, what was it, 30, 40 points, something crazy. And I made a video and people were saying, oh, you're doing too much. You know, you're getting in over your head. They beat a Cavs team that isn't pretty good or isn't too good. And they beat a Cavs team in preseason where it doesn't matter. Well, the Cavs have come out on fire to start the season, number one. And number two, at one point, I think we were up by like 28, 30 points against the Bucks. And they're an NBA contending team. I mean, an NBA title contending team. So I want to hear what the excuses are now. And not only that, we beat them by we were up by damn near 30 at one point, and we were missing Emmanuel Quickly, a player that I think is very important to this offense and to this team. And we were also missing Obi Toppin, a young first-round draft pick that we think could potentially be a building block for this team. So we were missing those two big pieces, and we still were able to come out there and look pretty good. Defensively, the team was doing everything they needed to do in order to stop the penetration in the paint, because, you know, that's where Giannis is going to kill you, in the paint. And I think there were moments where the team kind of got disorganized and transition on defense, and Tibbs wasn't going to let that rock. Tibbs was calling timeouts whenever he saw some defensive lapse that he felt needed to be adjusted, or he felt that he needed to tear into the team and let them know, you know, get your head together. I'm not liking what I'm seeing. And then on top of that, not even defensively, but also offensively, Tibbs made some adjustments coming into this third game that we really didn't see too much of in the first two games. Now, I made a video kind of breaking down Emmanuel Quickly's play, and I'll link that up above if you want to check it out. But when Emmanuel Quickly is running pick and roll, the defender is not allowed to really go under the screen because Emmanuel Quickly is able to shoot. But with Elfrid Payton, defenders don't really have that issue to worry about, because Elfrid Payton isn't going to kill you from three. And before you get into the comments and let me know he had a great shooting night, I'm just speaking in general. This is a defense coming into the game, and this is how they're going to prepare. So if Elfrid Payton is not going to kill you from three, all you have to do is go under the screen, and you're going to stop a lot of the openings or a lot of the advantages that come with the pick and roll. So what Tibbs did in this game, I think Wiley mentioned it as well at the end of the game, is they had Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson initiating pick and rolls a lot closer to the basket, right around the elbow, low post area. When you see Quickly do it, he's doing it, you know, well at the three-point line. He's doing it with a lot more space, so he can actually have a lot more room to operate and get by his defender if he were to go over the screen. But in this scenario, the defender can't really go under the screen, because if the defender goes under the screen, Elfrid Payton is already sitting in the paint with either the ability to make a jump shot, make a floater, or pass when the defense has to adjust. And we saw this time and time again being used by the New York offense. Emmanuel Quickly, he is not available because of the injury to his hip. So this is what Tibbs decided to implement to kind of get Payton going. And we saw it from jump. Like, Payton and Randle didn't really have too great of a game to start. I think most of his points came from the free throw line. He really started hitting his shots toward the second half of the game. And Payton was doing a little bit of everything. Payton was facilitating, he was scoring, he was shooting threes. What did Payton? He was 3 for 3 from three, something you're not going to see from Payton regularly. And if Payton is going to be the starting point guard for the foreseeable future, then Tibbs needs to continue running sets like this to get Payton going, because I don't want Payton here long term. And, if he's able to play good, we can get a nice package for him at the trade deadline. Yeah, he had a good game, but I don't think anyone in the Knicks fandom is expecting Payton to be our starting point guard for the long term, especially not till the end of the season. he's going to be supplanted by, I would hope, Emmanuel quickly. If not, then whoever we end up trading Payton for can come in and take that starting point guard spot. Now, Julius Randle, same thing with him. He had a pretty good game. I have the stats up. He had 29 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 assists. He was a monster this game. And, you know, I don't disagree and say he's not a talented player. I just don't think he's the right player for the Knicks. But, you know, I'm going to enjoy what he was able to contribute to the team because I appreciate any contribution these players give to the team in order to win. But I'm still going to be realistic, and I'm not really going to change my opinion. Julius Randle and Elfrid still got to go. But we're going to give them their due. We're going to give them their credit. They played great. They were catalysts in engineering this team to a victory, especially against a team in the Milwaukee Bucks that most people would argue and say they're a championship contending team, or they have championship aspirations at least. You know, I don't know if they're better than the Lakers or some of the other teams in the West, but nobody would be shocked if the Bucks came out of the East the way the Nets are looking. You might be shocked if the Bucks come out of the East, but the Bucks lost to the Hornets. So yesterday, I don't know what was going on yesterday. The scores were crazy. Thank God I didn't bet any of the games, because if you did, I'm pretty sure you lost money, and I'm sorry to hear that, but that's how things go in the early part of the season. You never know what you're going to get. And the same thing can be said for the Knicks. The Knicks have been looking inconsistent for the first 2 games, where they were killing it in the first half. And then it seems like the last quarter and a half, they kind of let the rope go and said, you know what, this game's not for us. But in this game, from opening tip to the final buzzer, the team played hard. The team went out there with a goal, and that goal was to punch the Bucks in the mouth repeatedly until they succumbed to the pressure. And they were pulling out their starters. They were putting out their starters 7-something minutes left to go in the game or something. So the fact that the Knicks were able to make an impact and actually be on the national spotlight where we're actually doing something positive, because if it was this game where we had the jersey fiasco, you already know that's going to be all over social media with people clowning on us. But the fact that they can start the conversation with, yeah, we got the jerseys messed up, but they're going to have to end the conversation is after we got that fixed, we punched the Bucks in the mouth and they couldn't follow up. So I'm liking what I'm seeing from the team. Even RJ has some moments in the game where he gets into the paint and it's like, bro, just because you're in the paint, you don't have to shoot. Because there's certain times where he gets the lane and then he is met by a couple defenders, and he's been watching too much Julius Randle tape, because it seems like when he get double teamed in the paint, he's still going to put it up. So he's going to have to work on some of that, get some of those mistakes out of his game, because he's a pretty efficient player if he's not missing his threes. If you take out the threes, he was 7 for 14, which was 50% shooting. And we haven't seen him have that 3-point spark since that first game. So in order for RJ to really develop and become this star player we're hoping him to be, he's going to have to be a little bit more consistent from 3. And once we see RJ develop that 3-point a little bit more, this team, I think, is going to operate, or is going to hit a completely different gear. And I'm excited for how this team is going to look in the middle of the season, for when all these players get their chemistry together, get their timing down pat, and actually can start working as a unit. And, you know, the Knicks, one thing the Knicks have had trouble with is, one, we had trouble getting a star. And another thing is we have trouble getting glue guys. And it seems like Mitchell Robinson, I don't think he'll be an elite center, but he's definitely going to be one of those glue centers, somebody that you can put on the court. You don't have to focus on. You just have him out there and have him play as hard as he can. And as long as he don't get in foul trouble, he's a nice glue piece to kind of bring it, to kind of piece together whatever we're doing at point guard with RJ, with Obi, and whatever solution we find at small forward. Even Kevin Knox had a pretty decent game. Shooting wasn't great, but in this game and in the second game, he's had moments where he's been doing a little bit more than just scoring. He's given us some more rebounds. He's given us a little bit of assists here and there. So I want to see him continue to develop his game, because as of right now, we still have a hole at small forward. Well, let me not even say we have a hole at small forward, because I'm about to gloss over the fact that Alec Burks been out here wilding too. Alec Burks he's another one of those glue guys, someone you don't really have to focus too much on. But if you have to give him a workload, he's clearly able to do what he has to do to get the offense set up and to get other players the ball and to score on his own. He's not great as a playmaker. I'm not going to sit there and say something like that. But there were times where Tibbs put Burks in to run the offense, and Burks did a lot better than we've seen DSJ or Frank get the offense set up. So Burks, another piece. We may even have to look at extending him if we can extend him for a similar priced contract, because he's another one of those glue guys that we can just put out there on the court and he's going to find a way to contribute, whether that be, as we've seen with Tim's putting him as the point guard, or that's going to be off ball, catch and shoot, and things like that. So Alec Burks, Mitchell Robinson, I think we're building something if we can keep those two for the foreseeable future, because Mitchell Robinson, you never know if there's another tantalizing deal out there. The Knicks may be willing to move on from him, but as of right now, he's clearly better than Nerlens Noel. So I don't see them, going down that route. And if they don't, then Mitchell Robinson, Alec Burks, those are two major glue guys that I would start looking at on this team to see what they could become when the Knicks start filling in a little bit more, whether that be a point guard and whether that be some additional depth. Because right now, looking at the team, when we go to the bench, it's really, it leaves little to be desired, honestly. Yes, and I got to admit, we were undermanned and understaffed. Undermanned and understaffed. Sound like I'm at work. But, we still should have gotten a little bit more from some of the second unit. Frank Nitty killed too. I won't say he killed, but Frank Nitty, he finally shooting. He finally showing some confidence. There was one moment where he had a nice little 18-footer that he could have shot, and he kind of turned it down. And you heard Frazier like, yo, bro, you got to shoot that. You hurting the team. And it seems like Nitty heard him, because the very next play, Nitty pulled up and knocked down a three. Boom, effortlessly. So if Frank can continue to do that, then I think Frank would have found a role in the NBA. Because as of right now, I don't think Frank Nitty has a role, period. So if we're able to put Frank Nitty into that box as a 3-and-D wing, and the rest of the league can see it and say, okay, he can operate efficiently in this role, then I think if you're not a Frank Nitty fan, you can actually have some hope that we might be able to get something from him. Because I think the big reason a lot of teams didn't want to trade for Frank Nitty is the fact that there's no clearly defined role for him. He's not a point guard. He's didn't have the ability to shoot, to be a legitimate wing. And if he's able to develop that jump shot now, then he's going to be a nice piece to have off ball, secondary playmaker maybe, and can defend and shoot the three. So if you like Frank, that is also a nice role for us to have internally or with the team. So, if Frank can continue to show he can, drop the three consistently, then the team is a lot better off than even I would have thought, because we're seeing good contribution. It's just those last three, I would say quarter and a half of the first two games. The last quarter and a half of the first two games were rough. It was just rough. But every other quarter outside of that, the Knicks have been either competitive or we've been blowing out the Bucks. So as a Knicks fan, me personally, I can't be mad with what I'm seeing so far, because none of those three games you really thought, yeah, the Knicks have a pretty good shot at winning. You wanted them to be competitive. But if they lost to the Pacers, you would understand that the Pacers are a lot, or not, I won't say a lot, but they're more talented than us. If we were going to beat them, it would have to come because of coaching. And the same thing can be said when we were up against the 76ers. So that's another team that you can't be upset the Knicks lost. They're just a more talented team. If we were going to win, it was going to come down to coaching. And you saw that for us to beat the Bucks, it came down to coaching. It came down to some of the offensive adjustments Tibbs made out there and put some of these players in better positions to succeed. So I wasn't necessarily a fan of Tibbs. I didn't want Tibbs per se. I wanted the former Nets coach. Oh man, his name slips my mind. Let me Google it, and then I'll cut back to it. Atkinson. Now I remember. I really wanted Kenny Atkinson because I like the way he coached up some of the younger players in Brooklyn. But if Tibbs is going to still give that defensive intensity or coach up that defensive intensity and show some of these offensive adjustments game in and game to game, then I can live with Tibbs as the coach because Tibbs is not necessarily a bad coach. I just didn't like him because of the way our roster was constructed. But he's giving some of these young guys minutes. He looked like he was trying to give Quickly more minutes before he got hurt. He's letting Mitch start, even though Nerlens Noel is still healthy. And it's clear Mitchell Robinson is still the best option at center. Noel is serviceable, but I don't think he's a better starting option than Mitch. So if Tibbs can keep this up, the Knicks are cooking with gas. And I'm excited to see what the rest of the year could actually bring. So you let me know what you think down in the comments. Once again, I'm Quis, host of Sports Vibes TV, and I'm out. But all my stress.